I'm Office 5521, day 5, October 2020. We will have something here which is the structure, idea of things that are have been made by very clear purpose, which is prevent some big distortions that we have
in regards to transnational organized crime, terrorism, and of course cybercrime, which is a borderless crime by nature. So these issues are more complex and more international than ever. We see, for instance, organized crime groups really acting on a transcontinental level in conducting their criminal activity in terms of money laundering activities. We see terrorist groups being in contact with each other, also across the continents. We see a lot of terrorists traveling and using commodities like illegal firearms trafficking to conduct their terrorist activities. And of course, cybercrime is one of the challenges international societies in a hyper-connected world will create a challenge for law enforcement globally. So we have to build strong networks of cooperation against the networks of terrorism and organized crime and cybercrime. And this is exactly what the cooperation with UNODC, the UN Office for Organized Crime and Drug Crime, is about. We have started very successfully joint projects, for instance, in helping our member countries to build the capacity, the capabilities, and the training the officers and the agencies need to tackle this kind of international crime. And we have our meeting here in Lyon today to strengthen that partnership, to talk about already existing projects, but also even more to strive for synergies in the future, to build a complementary architecture of security. And again, UNODC and Interpol have very practical examples how we can strengthen the support for our member countries.
So we can have an idea about how relevant is this research. And of course that this in a very specific moment will have to face a need as something that you didn't have yet. It means that maybe we have to development things. And the development of things will be made by the intellectual property, and it's a consequence of activities that you do by your moral conviction oriented by the conjunct of the scenery as need, or the targeting the space that you have to face. And when you violate some very specific areas, and this is, as part of a development of something, and maybe you are committing a crime, or at least illicit behavior. And if this kind of affects you, the production as industrial activity, for instance, have the support of military defense global scale, maybe you are committing industrial crime in the same way. It's something that we must consider before we do a lot of violation against specific citizen, considering that you are untouchable by the misuse of prerogative to commit crimes, protect crimes committed by criminals. And we are having something here today, quite simple, quite clear. We could have, in the very first moment, the idea of the, the internal failure as an utilitarian model. We can fight back by a disruptive procedure in the middle, and we are having an holographic organization named the Mintzberg organization. And in the same way, we will observe that if you have distortions, globally speaking, in Brazil 2012, 2020, we can have the transnational organized crime, we can have the white collar crime. The white collar crime, we will have the financial crime law. The transnational organized crime, considering the linkage in the very first moment, the communication law, we can have this speech with local authorities. We are having this speech in an international and global level. The division of the environment according with the Constitution. If we didn't have or do not have the same quality of information, we have a distortion, and then we will deteriorate to have this distortion. The transnational organized crime is according with the law 12,850 of Brazilian legal system and allows the international activity. The dismissing procedure gives me the control group as an institutional agreement that had violated and tolerated the violation as part of the top-down corruption scam, corporative area, public area. In the same way, I must have this information as the same information. On present time, we have this valid as the do not have the proper accomplishment with the Constitution and the law in Brazil by the top level of institutions. Then we will have today the DBS as a procedure presenting the idea as operational research. In a very first moment, we have Brazil. Brazil, in a very specific period, got linked with USA by Petrobras contract on Pasadena and Portugal with the Oi Telecom or something like this, both case distortion. Then we will redistribute this kind of relation as association, but Brazil, in the middle, you have USA, you have Portugal. But if we have that scam as coalition linked by distortion with interest field illicit gains, maybe we will have the redistribution inside this workflow to do not have the proper thing as responsiveness by law. And will affect the international environment as we could get nowadays. But we observe that Portugal and USA are part of the NATO. It means that we are kind of having here things, I think that more properly, because in both cases, I will have the NATO. It means that this is my field of distortion. It means Europe, South America, North America, triple distortion, we have our boat. Quite simple, quite clear. We will have this model as something very cruel that a 12-year-old kid, have the basic notion to get this knowledge. The database Sigma, it will be divided on environment Brazil, considering the system of justice. I will put as something like this. And I will have, in the same way, the contractor review and all things by USA. Because indeed we have a security forum here. Just to have data, this is my first control by matrix, considering the function as the system of justice that could be the payment, the salary, and I will have my second type of control that will be my government. Brazil, my government, USA. This is the basic idea that I'm gonna have. The database sigma A, the database sigma A comma. Then I will have my matrix of control, my matrix of control. When we put this on the chart, we will have something like this. We will consider a contractual review. You know, It means that, let's suppose that we have the government Brazil, we have the government USA. We are making the review of the Pasadena case, distortions in the middle. We will consider this value in the very first moment as corruption, because it affects both sides. And this is my, you know, database sigma. The other is my database sigma, considering the Supreme Court member, Justice Brazil, and Justice USA. Corruption, as do not have the proper accomplishment with the law, the paradigm is the tax research as property evaluation. If they do not have the proper accountability and, and transparency as property evaluation, we will have this area in the middle. It's not necessarily an association, but I'm considering that you are not able to present yourself as a regular value inside the system of justice. And then we will have the cross data between the database sigma, which will be, let's suppose that I have this matrix here as distortion, and I have this matrix here as distortion. Now I have this field here as the group that probably will be under a constriction procedure to have the proper thing. The financial police, it's recommended to have something like this. You have your regular pattern of property evaluation. Here you have the increasement as illicit gain. You will have in that area, which is the cross data by matrix, which means the big data, you will have the surge of all illicit gains, and you will lose something. It means that this space is what you lost as the financial punishment. Here you will probably will be sent to jail. But if you wouldn't like to be sent to jail, you can be very cooperative and have the financial death. That means that you will lose everything, but you will not suffer the death penalty, the life prison for life, all things. We finish here. Have a nice week.